What are the top 10 moments in SummerSlam history? Well, we think we've got them figured out. Fred Richani, TSC, your home for pro wrestling news updates, features, interviews, and everything in between. We're here to look back at the top 10 SummerSlam moments in history according to the Sports Courier. You may agree with us, you may disagree with us, but hey, that's why these things are fun. Let's take a look at the list. Number 10, SummerSlam 1991, Macho Man Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth, their official WWE storyline wedding. These two had been married for some time, would unfortunately get divorced shortly after, but in my humble opinion, Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth, that love story is the greatest love story in WWE history. Miss Elizabeth, such an enduring character. Randy Savage, such an enduring character. I mean, there are people that grew up on these two that still recall this to this very day with fondness. Now, some people, some young fans may be like, really? A wedding in the top 10? Well, believe it or not, this wedding was actually unscathed. During the actual ceremony, it was just a beautiful ceremony between two amazing characters. And while this was just a wedding, while this didn't involve any action, it was the culmination of an incredible time, an incredible story between two late, great WWE legends. Number 9, Brock Lesnar squashes John Cena to win the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, SummerSlam 2014. Some of you guys may say, whoa, wait. Brock Lesnar beating John Cena? Huh? Why does this make the list? I'll tell you why. It was because Brock Lesnar won in such ridiculously dominant fashion to capture his first world title since 2003. He took John Cena to Suplex City before Suplex City was even a freaking thing. And if you still are wondering why this is on the list, let me ask you a few questions. Do you remember any top star losing to a big bad heel in this dominant one-sided squash match fashion at a major pay-per-view nonetheless? I'll wait. Stone Cold? Nope. John Cena before this? Nope. The Rock? Nope. Triple H? Nope. Daniel Bryan? Triple H? Nope. Bruno Sammartino? Nope. Okay? You'd have to go back in history, deep in the annals of WWE history, to find a one-sided match like this. I'm sure there was one during the 60s, during the 70s, but if you're talking about like modern time, from like Hulkamania and Randy Savage and Rock and Wrestling to Bret the Hitman Hart and Shawn Michaels to Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H to John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and the whole time The Undertaker's been around, I mean, you really can't find this dominant of a performance in a world title match. Maybe Bob Backlund versus Diesel back in the day when Diesel captured that world title, but this was not Bob Backlund. This was John Cena in his prime, still going strong, not in Hollywood yet, not fully immersed in movies and award shows or anything. This was John Cena still going strong, still full-time against Brock Lesnar, the former UFC heavyweight champion, who reclaimed what was his. And this would set the tone for a dominant run for years to come for the beast, Brock Lesnar. For better or worse. Number 8, Randy Orton wins the world title at SummerSlam 2004. This has been somewhat of a forgotten moment in WWE history, and kind of rightfully so, because Chris Benoit was the man that Randy Orton beat to become the youngest WWE champion in history. Actually, the youngest WWE world champion. There's a certain distinction. There's youngest WWE champion of all time as far as the actual traditional WWE title belt dating back to Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. And then there's the World Heavyweight Championship, which dates back to the days of WCW and the National Wrestling Alliance. The latter is what Randy Orton won here at SummerSlam 04. Why was this significant? Number of reasons. First of all, Chris Benoit, not a fan, obviously, of him, but at the time, it was a big deal for a guy of that size. Not that big at all, really, when you consider height. Muscles, yeah. Height, not so much. To not only be world champion, but headlining one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year. On top of that, you had a young gun, 24-year-old Randy Orton, looking like a main eventer and looking like the main eventer he would be for years to come. And Randy Orton would capture that world title, win it clean, no controversy, in the middle of the freaking ring, become the youngest world champion in WWE history. And on top of that, this represented a major moment for WWE, because for the next 14 years or so, Randy Orton would go on to be one of the most durable and long-lasting top stars in recent memory. A guy who's consistently had good to great matches, a guy who consistently gets good to great crowd reactions, and when it comes to in the ring, the Apex Predator, the Viper, no doubt belongs amongst the greats in WWE lore. Number 7, Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam 1992. Davey Boy Smith defeats Bret the Hitman Hart to win the Intercontinental Championship. Brother-in-law versus brother-in-law. Why was this significant? Few reasons. One, absolute classic, great match that saw Davey Boy Smith get a pinning combination on Bret Hart to win the IC title. 2, the atmosphere. UK's own British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith in front of 80,000 people, 80,000 plus people at Wembley Stadium. That's huge. One of the biggest crowds in WWE history. On top of that, this match, I think, cemented Bret Hart as a top guy in WWE, whether WWE at the time wanted to accept that or not. And on top of all of that, the Intercontinental Championship was the main event match. And unlike Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins in a 30-minute Iron Man match where people did not care whatsoever, the fans were truly emotionally invested before the bell, after the bell, and after the match ended. And it featured an emotional embrace between Bulldog and Hart. They celebrated in the ring. Just an emotional moment. Bulldog's wife was there. Bret Hart's sister. Just incredible, incredible stuff. This, to me, was basic, but great storytelling at its finest. The Rock versus Triple H, ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, SummerSlam 1998. Notice, SummerSlam has got a lot of great IC title moments. This was one of them. The Rock and Triple H at the time were not perennial main eventers, were not perennial world title holders. They were two young guns rising, well, I should say skyrocketing to the top. Triple H, the leader of D-Generation X following Shawn Michaels' retirement, and The Rock, the leader of the Nation of Domination after ousting Farouk Ron Simmons. This ladder match was great because it featured two heated rivals in the ring and out of the ring in real life who were at each other's throats to see who would rise above and be the best. And we all know at the end, both guys did pretty damn well for themselves, but on that night, it was Triple H winning the ladder match to capture the IC title. Both guys, huge stars. Triple H now second in command behind Vince McMahon. Oh, he's also married to some other executive named Stephanie McMahon. Maybe you've heard of her. Rock, maybe the biggest star in Hollywood right now. Just tremendous match and a tremendous platform for these guys. We all knew watching that these guys were going to be something special back in the day. We knew that. But how special? Even though Triple H had his hand raised at the end of the night, the irony is that this match helped both men. Rock in a loss, he did great. Continued to be a huge star and skyrocket to the top. Triple H took him a little bit longer, but same thing for the most part. And that's the way pro wrestling should be. Sometimes you got to get one guy over and you got to just go with them. A lot of times we see in present day WWE, they trade wins and losses left and right. And, you know, they have a best of 7 series, best of 10 series. Sure, these guys had wrestled before, but every time they stepped foot in the ring, the stakes got higher and higher and higher. And these guys certainly delivered at SummerSlam 1998. Number 5, Daniel Bryan defeats John Cena for the WWE Championship, SummerSlam 2013. Why was this moment huge? Hell, Daniel Bryan, to the eyes of Vince McMahon and a lot of fans, undersized, underutilized, a guy who is the perennial underdog. For him to go from losing to Sheamus in like 12 seconds, 18 seconds, whatever the hell it was, that debacle at WrestleMania 28, for him to have a silly world title run where he got over, but a silly one that featured him in 2011, simply rolling up the Big Show after a Mark Henry attack to become world champion for the first time. For him to come back from all of that, to overcome the comedy character stigma in Team Hell No, which was fun, but maybe a little beneath him at times, for him to come back from all of that, to get to the main event of SummerSlam, to have the match of his life, to break down that size barrier, and to pin one of the biggest stars of all time clean in the middle of the ring with a running knee. Man, oh man, that is a moment that will be remembered for years to come. Now, we should note that Randy Orton would cash in his Money in the Bank on Daniel Bryan to steal the world title, but Daniel Bryan, much like in this match, would eventually not be denied and capture the world title again at WrestleMania 30. He actually, fun fact, he actually held it for a day after Night of Champions 2013, about a month later, but that was then vacated. Yeah, late 2013 WWE, that was a mess. That gave me a headache. Let's not think about that. Let's look back at some of the great moments, like Bryan pinning Cena. Number 4, Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan, SummerSlam 2005. This was a dream match for the generation that thought Hulk Hogan is the end-all be-all for WWE. Shawn Michaels was the guy for those in the early, mid-90s. And Shawn Michaels, you can make the argument, helped kickstart the Attitude Era with D-Generation X and some of his antics, for better or worse. So this was a battle between two icons, icon versus icon. This did a huge buy rate at the time for SummerSlam for WWE, and it featured some real-life beef because there were rumors running rampant that Shawn Michaels did not want to work with Hulk Hogan, was not down with losing to Hulk Hogan, and oh yeah, spoiler alert, Hulk Hogan did defeat Shawn Michaels, but it was in the fashion that he beat him in. That was memorable because you could feel the tension in the air. You could cut it with a knife. You could cut it with a giant pair of scissors, maybe Bruce the Barber Beefcake scissors. And Shawn Michaels not only put over Hulk Hogan, he maybe put him over a little too much. He oversold everything. Every bump Shawn Michaels took for Hulk Hogan was ridiculously exaggerated. Some people call it hilarious, which I do. Some people call it unprofessional, which you could too. But it was memorable for all the right and wrong reasons. And the build-up was interesting too because Shawn Michaels would talk about how Hulk Hogan's a has-been, how Hulk Hogan holds people down, and Shawn Michaels, man, I think is a very underrated promo in his career. His words cut deep. We saw it with the Bret Hart feud where things were really personal, and on screen they just got a little too personal, a little too real. It felt that way with Hogan versus HBK, and even though Hogan got the win, it was HBK who had the last laugh because he not only pulled out a great match for Hulk Hogan, maybe the last great match of his career, but the next night on Raw, he absolutely verbally eviscerated him. And yeah, that was kind of unprofessional. But hey, when you're the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels and you can have great matches like that, well, sometimes the rules are different. Number 3, tables, ladders, and chairs. Oh my, the very first TLC match, SummerSlam 2000, before this thing was a pay-per-view, when TLC matches actually meant something and weren't just throwaway stipulations. This featured Edge and Christian taking on the Dudley Boys, taking on the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff. And this was a tremendous matchup. Actually, a rematch from the first unofficial TLC match. It was a triple threat ladder match, tag team ladder match, back at WrestleMania 16 earlier that year. This was insane. What do you want me to say? Swanton bombs, twists of fates, spears, 3Ds, tables being broken, chairs being smashed, ladders being tipped over and demolished. This was just nuts. And while you can look back and say, man, were the risks really worth it? I guess it's up to all 6 superstars in the match to tell you that. But I'll say this. The match absolutely holds up. And it represents a huge moment for all these guys because, think about it. All these guys are either Hall of Famers or well on their way to going into the Hall of Fame, that being Christian at the time I'm recording this. The Dudley Boys, one of the best tag teams ever, certainly in terms of just winning tag titles, okay, filling up that trophy case, the best ever. Edge and Christian, both became big single stars. Edge became the Radar Superstar. Christian would eventually go on to win 2 world titles in WWE, as well as 2 world titles in TNA Impact Wrestling. And we had the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy becoming a huge star, 3-time WWE World Champion, Matt Hardy, while he never quite got to that level in WWE, was a very successful in WWE, United States champion, ECW champion, European champion. The list goes on and on. Had the great broken Matt Hardy character and woken Matt Hardy character. Was a world champion in TNA Impact Wrestling. Won tag titles with Jeff and ROH and all over the freaking world. I mean, these guys just had amazing careers. Hell, the Dudleys, even as single stars, had a pretty damn good run in Impact Wrestling as well. So, I mean, these guys represent the absolute best when it comes to late 90s, early 2000s tag team wrestling. And you can make the argument maybe they shouldn't have taken so many risks, but the reality is we're still talking about this match to this day. And back then, they felt that's what they needed to do to stand out with a stacked roster that featured Mick Foley, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, The Rock, and then some. And boy, they sure as hell did. Bravo, gentlemen. Bravo. Number 2, SummerSlam 2002, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. This match might be polarizing depending on the generation you're from, but for me, this was huge. An incredible matchup that featured two best friends going at it one-on-one for the first time in New York. But not only that, it was Shawn Michaels' first match back in a WWE ring in 4.5 years. He had suffered a horrible back injury in Royal Rumble in 1998 in a casket match with The Undertaker. He put over Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14, and then he was gone, out of sight, out of mind. Had some appearances as a special guest ref, had some appearances as a commissioner, a commentator here and there, but for the most part, Shawn Michaels was not near a WWE ring, and Shawn Michaels also had a lot of issues behind the scenes with drugs and things like that. Luckily for him, he found religion, he cleaned himself up, happily married family man, and he came back here with peace of mind. And at the time, we thought this was Shawn Michaels' one and only match, but it ended up being another 8-year run, which was pretty freaking incredible. And you got to think about this, okay? I was like maybe 12, 13 at the time when this match aired. We heard all the rumors about Shawn Michaels' back, how sensitive it is. He could be paralyzed. And yet he's taking sidewalk slams to steel chairs, back body drops, sledgehammer shots, pedigrees, you name it. He is taking it, but he was also dishing it out. And this storyline was just brilliant. It was just a simple but effective storyline. Two best friends who started D-Generation X, the mentor and the student. The student had become a huge star, a dominant star in WWE. And then Shawn Michaels coming back. And Triple H, the former student, perceiving that Shawn Michaels is trying to steal his glory, steal his spotlight. Triple H is mad because he carried Shawn Michaels at the end of his first run in WWE, not the other way around. Depends who you ask, I guess. But they settled it in the ring, or so we thought, when Shawn Michaels reversed the pedigree into a pinning combination, rolled up Triple H for the win. But Triple H, at least on that night, would have the last laugh, breaking a sledgehammer across Shawn Michaels' back, taking him out up until Survivor Series 2002, where Shawn Michaels would win the world title. Some of you may say this match is way too high, but I'm telling you, for people like me that look at Shawn Michaels and put him up there as one of the all-time greats, maybe the most well-rounded performer of all time in the history of professional wrestling, to have him come back and come back in this epic, classic, violent fashion, that is a moment that'll stay with me the rest of my life. And number 1, also from SummerSlam 2002, Brock Lesnar defeats The Rock to win the WWE Championship, and at the time, become the youngest world champion in WWE history at 25 years old. This was huge because, well, Brock Lesnar's huge. He was pushed as a guy that was supposed to be the heir apparent to Steve Austin, to The Rock, in some cases maybe even to Triple H. Dominant back and forth performance, just brutalized The Rock. Rock had some offense in there as well, but Brock Lesnar got that New York crowd behind him, even though he was a heel who destroyed their favorites like Hulk Hogan. He pinned The Rock clean, 1, 2, 3 with the F5 to win, and it represented the crowning of a new guy. And we didn't know it yet at the time, right? We knew that he was going to be a top star. We didn't know that he was going to leave for the NFL in 2004. We didn't know he was going to go on to the UFC to become, at the time, the biggest draw in company history, other than Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey. And we didn't know that he was going to come back for another run in 2012 and be even more dominant than he was the first time. You look at Brock Lesnar's career, whether you love him, whether you hate him, it all started right here, SummerSlam 2002. And for what this moment represents in WWE and professional wrestling history, that's why we believe it belongs in the number 1 spot. But I want to hear from all you guys. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know. Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. Hell, if you dislike this video, the dislike button's right there too. And if you want to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button, enable notifications, visit our official website, and until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the matches.